Some people spend their entire lives waiting for a raise, an opportunity, or a stroke of luck. But those who truly thrive don't wait for anything. They act with precision. They build in silence. And they follow invisible rules that few know about. Not because they were taught in a manual, but because they were discovered through practice, by observing reality as it is, not as they would like it to be. There is a fine line that separates those who prosper from those who merely survive. And that line is not physical effort or the number of hours worked. It is the way money is perceived, treated, and used. Those who understand this enter a different game, one that does not depend on exhaustion, but on clarity. Have you ever wondered why some people manage to get ahead financially even with few resources, while others seem to tread water even though they are a reasonable income? Or why so many people spend their lives working without ever achieving true stability? The answer lies in what you don't see, in the small but consistent decisions that quietly shape the future. To explain this clearly, it is worth telling a story that few people know. In a forgotten corner of the countryside, surrounded by tall trees and an almost sacred silence, lived a man who had already tasted wealth. He was a merchant, investor, and strategist. He built a fortune, influence, and prestige. But one day, he decided that money had already fulfilled its role in his life. He sold everything, distributed most of it, and retired to a small house near a peaceful river. There he found peace, and eventually, he became known not for what he had, but for what he knew. People came from far and wide to hear him. They weren't looking for magic formulas, but real understanding. They wanted to learn what had never been taught: how to turn an ordinary life into a prosperous one. One morning, a young man came to him. He was sweaty, his eyes sunken, and his voice choked with frustration. "I've tried everything," he said, "but nothing seems to work. I earn money, but I spend it. I try hard, but nothing changes. It's like I'm stuck in a cycle that never ends." The older man looked at him calmly and replied simply, "Then it's time to do something different." They sat down in the shade of a tree. The young man listened in silence, and what he heard would change everything. "The first rule," began the wise man, "is to learn how to save before you learn how to earn more." Most people think the opposite. They say they will only start saving when they have a better salary. But those who don't save when they have little won't save when they have a lot. He picked up a small seed from the ground and continued, "Do you see this? On its own, it's worthless. But if it's planted, watered, protected, it becomes a tree." Money works the same way. Those who consume everything they earn are eating their own harvest before it's even grown. The young man frowned. "But I can barely pay my bills with what I earn." That's exactly why you need to start. The transformation begins the moment you decide that a portion of what comes in will stay with you. It doesn't matter if it's 5%, 10%, or less. It's that gesture that teaches your brain that you're no longer in survival mode. You're in building mode. "And what do I do with that money I save?" asked the young man. "You're not going to do anything with it yet. First, you need to learn to resist the temptation to spend it. Because the world will try to convince you that you deserve to use that money now, that you can reward yourself, that a small purchase won't make a difference. But it does, because the real reward isn't the immediate spending, it's the future freedom. The old man then told him something curious. Many rich people didn't start out with a lot of money. They started with discipline. They understood early on that saving is the first step, and that the amount saved, no matter how small, is a seed of independence. The young man was silent, absorbing every word. "But saving isn't enough," the man continued. "You have to protect yourself from yourself. Most people don't lose money because someone stole it. They lose it because they sabotage themselves. They buy things they don't need. They try to keep up with the lifestyle of others. They live to prove something that, deep down, isn't even theirs. And how do you protect yourself from that? Asked the young man. With awareness. Whenever you spend money, ask yourself, does this bring me closer to what I want or further away? Does it solve a problem or just feed a desire? If the answer is emotional, think twice. The old man stood up, walked over to a small wooden box, and took out a notebook. Inside were old notes. He showed the young man a scribbled page where he had written in firm handwriting, "Saving is the beginning. Protecting is the way. Multiplying is the goal." That was my first lesson, he said. And that's where everyone should start. It doesn't matter if you earn little. What matters is to start acting like someone who builds. Saving is an act of courage, but protecting what you save requires vision. Most people fail not because they can't save money, but because they don't know what to do with it afterwards. And at that moment, what seemed like the beginning of freedom turns into yet another trap. The money saved becomes an excuse for emotional spending. A promotion, a new release, an impulse. And that's it. Everything is back to square one. But those who truly prosper do things differently. They don't just save, they direct. They know that every dollar saved carries potential, and that potential needs to be activated consciously. The first question they ask is, how can I make this money grow? Not, what can I spend it on now? The young man listened intently to the old man. The conversation was now moving towards something he had never heard before: how to use money with real intelligence. When you start saving, explained the wise man, two voices arise within you. The first says, use it, you deserve it. The second whispers, wait. Something greater is being built. The first voice is the one you've always listened to. The second, you're still learning to recognize. And how do I choose the second one? Asked the young man. With direction. You can't save without a goal. Money saved without a purpose becomes temptation. But when you know what you're saving for, focus replaces desire. And what was difficult becomes natural. The young man sat up straight. He wanted to understand more. The old man continued. You need to start investing. But be careful. I'm not talking about the stock market or big business. I'm talking about the simple act of multiplying. Putting your money into a stream where it can work while you rest. And where do I start? With little. Always with little. Those who don't invest $100 won't know how to invest $1,000. It's habit that makes an investor, not the amount. But where do I put that money? First in yourself, in knowledge that expands your vision, then in something that generates a return. It could be a simple project, a new skill, a tool that improves your ability to generate value. The important thing is to understand that money can't just sit there. At this point, the young man no longer saw money as he had before. He began to realize that every dollar has a purpose and that using it poorly is like burying seeds in infertile soil. What if I feel like spending money on something useless? He asked. Stop, breathe, and ask yourself a new question. Does this give me a return? Not an emotional return, but a real return. If the answer is no, you already know what to do. The old man then picked up a polished stone and placed it on the table. This stone represents your reserve. If you use it on impulse, it disappears. But if you use it wisely, it multiplies. Every decision is a stroke of destiny. So it's all about control, not just. It's about awareness. Control is holding back the impulse. Awareness is not even feeling the impulse. And that only comes with clarity. The young man reflected. For the first time, he didn't feel like he needed more money. He felt like he needed to be a different kind of person when it came to money. The old man continued. And now that you know how to save, protect, and direct, it's time to face a truth that many ignore. Your biggest financial enemy is the disorganization of your spending. How so? Do you know exactly where every penny of your last paycheck went? No, most people don't. And that's where the problem lies. Money disappears because it has no name. Any amount without a specific destination is captured by chance. So, I need to write everything down. You need to understand everything. Know how much comes in, how much goes out, and, most importantly, why it goes out. The logic is simple. You will never build freedom without knowing where you are stuck. The young man shifted uncomfortably, but he knew it was true. And how do I start? With 3 columns. What is necessary? What is useful? And what is vanity? Cut out everything that is vanity. Question everything that is only useful. And optimize everything that is necessary. When you live like this for 6 months, your results will explode. But what about emergencies? The unexpected? If you have reserves and vision, nothing is a surprise. What you call emergency is often just a consequence of lack of preparation. At that moment, the wise man stood up, went to a bookcase, and took out a leather-bound notebook. In it, he showed a list of financial decisions he had made over the past few years. Each one had a justification, a purpose, and a result. It's not about writing things down to control them. It's about writing things down to learn. Every decision needs to be analyzed. That's how you grow, not with more money, but with more clarity. The conversation then moved on to a new point. How to increase earnings without doubling your efforts. Do you want to earn more? Asked the old man. Yes. Then learn to buy money. Buy. That's right. Money can be bought. With what you offer in return. With the value you deliver. With the solution you provide. Every new skill you learn is another door that opens. But how do you know what to learn? Look around you. Where there is a problem, there is an opportunity. Solve a problem, and you will never be short of money again. The young man began to realize that he was facing something much bigger. It wasn't just about finances. It was about behavior, about mindset, about identity. What if I fail? He asked with a slight tremor in his voice. You will. Everyone fails. But those who succeed fail while learning. And they get up with more wisdom. The conversation ended with one last piece of advice. Start small, but think big. And remember, those who are faithful in little things become masters of many. What keeps people from true wealth is not a lack of effort. It is a lack of understanding. Most people run, work, dream, but repeat patterns that keep scarcity alive. The problem is not in the desire to change, but in how one tries. The old man watched the young man closely. He had already shared everything about saving, protecting, controlling, and investing. But there was one final principle that needed to be understood. And that principle had nothing to do with numbers, spreadsheets, or goals. It had to do with identity. First of all, he began, you need to change who you believe you are. Because no financial plan will survive if your mind continues to see you as someone who is just surviving. You don't build wealth by being the same as you've always been. The young man listened with steady eyes. He was ready for something deeper. You told me you want to be financially free. But if you still think like someone who needs to prove themselves to others, if you still buy things to look strong when you're feeling weak, if you still feel guilty for wanting money, then you're trying to build on unstable ground. The silence hung heavy in the air, and the old man continued. The transformation you seek begins with what you accept as true within yourself. The way you deal with money is a reflection of your emotional history with it. And that's why many people, even when they earn more, remain lost. It's not how much comes in. It's what money represents in each person's mind. So the change has to come from within first? Asked the young man. Yes. You need to change your relationship with what it means to have, to receive, and to grow. Many carry beliefs such as money is dirty, I can't want too much, this isn't for me. These ideas sabotage any progress. The young man nodded. He had already felt guilty for wanting more than his parents had, and he had hidden his ambition many times, afraid of being judged. That's why you need to reframe your thinking. Money isn't evil. It's an amplifier. It reveals what's already inside you. If you're generous, money will make you more generous. If you're insecure, money will make you more fearful. Money doesn't change your character. It amplifies it. And how do I change that pattern? With repetition, visualization, and aligned feelings and actions. I'll show you a method. The old man walked over to a table and handed the young man a small leather notebook. Inside was a simple and powerful step-by-step guide. 1. Choose a specific financial amount. Say exactly how much you want to manifest. No generalities like, I want to be rich. Right? $250,000 by December of next year. 2. Define what you're willing to offer in return. It can be time, study, service, product, energy. Nature responds to exchanges. Without an offer, there is no return. 3. Set a clear deadline. Every goal needs a milestone. This activates focus, directs energy, and creates commitment. 4. Make a plan, even if it's simple. Don't wait until you have everything figured out. Take the first steps with what you know. Walking activates clarity. 5. Write these 4 points down every day. Don't just think about it, write it down. This fixes it in your subconscious and makes the desire tangible. 6. Read it twice a day, when you wake up and before you go to sleep. At that moment, visualize it. Feel the emotion of having already achieved it. See the details, mentally experience what is yet to come. But what if I'm just fooling myself? Ask the young man. You're not fooling yourself if you act on your intention. The mistake is not in dreaming. It's in dreaming and not moving. Visualization without action is just wishful thinking. But visualization with action is creation. The old man paused and then continued. There's another point you need to understand. Those who truly prosper develop an unshakable sense of entitlement. They don't beg for the life they want. They behave like they know they're going to get there. The young man then asked, what if I'm afraid? What if I don't trust myself? You'll sabotage yourself. You'll make excuses. You'll get distracted. You'll spend money on things you don't need. You will surround yourself with people who confirm your doubts. That is why confidence is the fuel of consistency. And how do you cultivate that confidence? With small victories, with daily goals achieved, with promises you make and keep to yourself. The more you do what you say you will do, the more your brain believes in you. The old man then explained something that few people know. You attract what you are emotionally comfortable with. If you feel strange about the idea of having money, your subconscious will find ways to reject that money. That's why you need to normalize the idea of prosperity. How do I do that? Create familiarity. Imagine yourself with money. How do you dress? How do you behave? How do you help others? How do you live? Get into that energy. Visit that scenario mentally until it becomes comfortable. The young man took a deep breath. He no longer felt guilty. He felt desire. He felt clarity. And above all, he felt power. The old man ended with a story. There was a time when I didn't believe it was possible either. I worked day and night. I always earned money. I always spent money. Until I met a simple but wise man. He told me, you need to stop chasing money. Start becoming someone that money seeks out. Since then, everything has changed. Not because the world has changed, but because I have changed inside. My decisions changed. My words changed. My environment changed. And the money started coming in. Not because I begged for it, but because I became compatible with it. The young man stood up. He took his notebook. He shook the old man's hand respectfully. And before leaving, he promised, I won't just try. I'll do it. The old man smiled. True transformation begins when you understand that wealth is not about having more. It's about becoming more. It's not just about accumulated money, but about the mindset behind each choice. The outside world is a reflection of what silently repeats itself inside. And that's why changing your financial reality requires something much deeper than techniques. It requires reframing. The old man knew that this was the most transformative part. He looked at the young man and said, "You've already learned how to save. You already understand how to protect. You've seen how to invest, control, and multiply. But now it's time to understand what all of this requires of you inside. Because money never stays where the mind isn't ready to keep it." The young man frowned. "You mean the mind has the power to attract or repel money?" "Exactly. You can apply all the techniques in the world, but if deep down you feel unworthy, insecure, or disconnected from the idea of prosperity, you will sabotage the process. You will spin with guilt, avoid good opportunities, and repeat inherited patterns. So that's where the key lies?" asked the young man. "That's where it all really begins." The conversation then moved on to what few have the courage to face: the hidden beliefs that control every decision. The old man explained that many people spend their lives trying to fix the effect without understanding the cause. They make spreadsheets, cut expenses, work harder, but they don't change the matrix. And the matrix is in the way they see themselves. If you see yourself as someone who always has to fight to get something, you will continue to fight. If you believe that money is dirty, you will never feel comfortable receiving it. And if you think you don't deserve more than those around you, you will always limit yourself. "But how can I change that?" asked the young man. "By reprogramming, by re-educating, by visualizing, by feeling before you have, by creating familiarity with what has not yet arrived." The old man then proposed an exercise. He asked the young man to close his eyes and answer aloud. "How do you feel when you imagine a large amount of money in your hands? Do you see yourself using that money wisely? Or do you feel fear, guilt, hesitation?" The young man silently answered himself. And there he realized there was still resistance. There were still voices from the past saying that this was not for him. "Now you know where you need to work," said the wise man. "Not on the tools, but on acceptance." He gave the young man a new set of practices. 1. Write daily. "I accept prosperity." This may seem simple, but it reprograms your subconscious. By repeating it, you begin to break down your inner resistance. 2. Visualize every day the version of yourself that has already won. How do you walk, talk, make decisions, act? See this version clearly. Become intimate with it. 3. List 3 negative beliefs about money that you heard as a child. Then replace each one with a new affirmation that supports growth. Example: money is hard becomes money flows when I create value. 4. Feel gratitude for what has not yet arrived. Give thanks as if you've already received it. This changes your vibration from lack to confidence. 5. Stay away from environments that reinforce scarcity. People who mock dreams, who live complaining or playing the victim, contaminate your frequency. 6. Act every day like someone committed to their own growth. Even if small, each step strengthens the identity you are building. These exercises are not just for feeling good, explained the old man. They change your center. You start making different decisions, noticing opportunities you didn't see before. Your perception changes, and the world responds. The young man was immersed in understanding. For the first time, he realized that his financial destiny was not out there, but within his invisible choices. "What about when I fall?" he asked. "What about when I fail?" You will fall. You will fail. But that doesn't matter. What matters is what you do next. Those who prosper are not those who never make mistakes. They are those who learn quickly. They are those who don't give up. So persistence is worth more than perfection. 1,000 times more. Because wealth is not an event. It is a consequence. A sum of conscious decisions maintained for long enough. The old man then concluded with an analogy. Imagine an empty field. You plant a seed. On the first day, nothing happens. On the second, still nothing. But you keep going. You water it, protect it, trust it. A month later, something starts to sprout. A year later, you harvest it. And if you repeat the process, you create a forest. It's the same with money and with life. The young man smiled. He knew he understood. And more than that, he was ready. "Thank you," he said. "Now go. And remember, you don't need to chase money. You need to chase the wisest version of yourself, because it already knows the way."